Hello, and welcome back on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm back with Revgirl. We're a day late, Revgirl, and I think I'm to blame for that. I'm sorry.
We are a
I
day
think
late?
we I
I
think
thought,
we I think we agreed on Tuesday at first, but
oh,
it
at
was
first, but
Halloween.
then we
It was
did change it
Halloween.
to
Yeah, yeah,
today. But then
yeah.
we are a little late.
A little late. Yeah. Well, Aaron had to go live at the same time as us as well. I think he knew. I think he knows the
There's a lot
competition
of
is getting stiff.
competition. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
I think he knows.
There.
So last time we spoke, we left off where you had just joined the Sea Org. You were working in the kitchen, aka the galley. Um, and
Yeah,
then
I
you had just
have
mentioned to me that
finished EPF.
you finished the EPF, yeah, which is basically the intro for Sea Org members, the
Yes.
101, learn the ropes, etc.
Boot
And
camp. Boot camp.
boot camp,
Yeah.
yeah, boot camp. Yep. So you were in the galley. You saved the day by finding the rotten smell that took up the galley. So you were
Yeah.
getting some street cred for that in the Sea Org.
hmm
And then I guess we could really just pick up from there. I mean, we got a lot. I think we got like 9 years to cover, right?
Yes.
So if you
So
want, let's
let's
just
see.
pick up from there.
I do want to mention that at first I was put in a dorm. And I think there were 8 women, and it really wasn't my dorm because I was actually occupying another staff member's bed for a while. Um, they literally just kicked her out. I know, Sea Org. But there was a woman in the bed next to me that was elderly, and she had cancer, and
Mm.
I was still kind of young and self-absorbed. But I did notice that she was really neglected and not being seen by a doctor, or she didn't get any like cancer treatment while she was dying, and it was awful.
Were
I'm
there modern cancer treatments at that time? I mean, I guess they had pills or chemo and stuff at that point, right?
well, they had morphine.
Yeah,
She
they had
was
something to at
dying.
least dull the pain. Sure, yeah. And
Yeah, I
what do they
mean,
call that? Hospice, right?
yeah. Well, I
Hospice
don't know if
care,
they
at
had
least.
actual hospice, but they had similar. They helped
Sure.
people with dying, and she wasn't
Yeah.
getting any of that. In fact, when I was in charge of the galley, I was in charge to make sure that she got fed, and it was challenging because nobody would help me get the food to her.
That's
So,
crazy.
and then I was never given a special diet, which looking back, I should have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
nobody
That's
said a word. So
it's amazing
that
to me.
happened. And then shortly after, my hero status, I was given my own room, which was totally awesome,
I bet.
because that changed my dating life a little, which was kind of cool.
Normally they jam how many people into a room?
When I was there, it was only 6 to 8.
Only,
Um,
only, huh?
yeah, from what I understand, it's a lot higher these days.
That's crazy.
And
Even
I
six
know,
to eight seems like I don't even want to see 6 to 8 people in a day. I mean, let alone live with them.
yeah,
That's
it was a
crazy.
wonder. It's a wonder we didn't keep it from being stinky.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever went in a male dorm, and I suspect that they didn't do as well. I also suspect that they may have had more than the women.
More
Um,
people in there?
yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
positive,
probably.
but it stands to reason.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the
So,
statistics, I think there's more men, so yeah, they probably
oh
jam-packed them
yeah,
more.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
wasn't uncommon for them to, when they went out on mission, they would just like put somebody else in their bed.
Yeah.
You don't really own anything when you're in this Sea Org.
Finding that out, yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, all your
So
property is theirs.
yeah, for me to have my own room, that was really awesome. And it also made it a little bit easier when I decided to blow because I
Mhm.
could, you know, uh, make plans, pack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On the
So,
DL a
but
little
let's
bit more.
see. I learned how to manage the kitchen, which was a pretty good feat at 17.
Sure.
And I bought all the groceries, managed the menu. I fed everybody. People were happy. I kept my stats up, and because I kept my stats up, they kind of left me alone. And after I did all my training for my position or post,
Okay.
as they
Can I
called it,
ask you one thing? Can I ask you one thing real quick? I know that the Sea Org's big on stats, and you mentioned all your tests that you were saddled with in the galley. How did they measure your statistics in the galley? I mean, number of meals given out to people. I mean, there's got to be some dumb statistic that they watched. What was it?
believe it or not, the staff were handed out a little piece of paper that had a few questions on it,
Hmm.
and they liked me, and they liked the way that I was managing the kitchen. So
Surveys.
yeah, it was a service questionnaire, and
Yeah,
they kept
makes
telling
sense.
me that they liked me. And I think part of it is I was cute. I handled the egg situation. They really didn't like the former uh, chief steward.
Right.
He was my cook actually, and he really didn't like them either. But he did a good job for me. And
Yeah.
my dishwasher also. I mean, I think everybody liked me, you know. What I mean? So
Yeah.
I didn't have problems with that, you know. And I found the job after I got trained pretty easy. So first it was training on the job, and then I had to read all of LRH's things about food. And he added a shitload of stuff that the Navy taught chief stewards.
Right.
And so once I finished that, I was pretty good at doing it. Oh, I had a test to do. God, this is going to take long if I keep going into these details.
You're fine. You're
I
fine.
ha- I had a test during training that I had to like manage. I did take like I was in a fancy restaurant, which I was not. Absolutely, we were in a cafeteria
Mhm.
setting, but I had
Right.
to take like 9 orders, not write them down, and like there was some time where I was asked other questions, and then I had to come back and deliver the 9 orders, just in play.
God. Yeah.
And
These
I
are
had
just
to do
mind
it in
games.
exact order. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
These are just
And
mind games with it, fucking with you, really.
the weird thing is that the coach that was working with me, the supervisor and the coach were supervising me, and I did it the first time. And
Mhm.
the coach couldn't believe it and literally got into an argument with the supervisor, and the supervisor passed me, and the coach was going, "But this is impossible. How could she do this the first time?"
Right.
And I just did. So I don't
Happens.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I
Right.
practiced for Christ's sake, so,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not like I didn't. But anyway, that was just funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I'm doing the post, get through the training, and then I'm supposed to get training every night, and I didn't like what they were putting me on. And so I kind of just slowly disappeared from the training because I didn't want to go. And
Mhm.
since my statistics were up, nobody really bothered me. Apparently, a lot of people skipped training when I was there. Now it's different now because they have really cracked down on everything in the Sea Org.
Right.
The Sea Org was just more relaxed when L. Ron Hubbard was alive. And then so, that gave me a lot more time for my um, other hobbies, which I
Which
wandered
was
around
guys.
Los Angeles a lot. I dated a lot. Um, and we did
Only
fun
in the
things.
Sea Org dating or outside people?
No, actually, I dated
Civilians?
I dated uh, Scientologists that weren't in the Sea Org, and I did date a couple of guys that weren't in Scientology because
Wow.
why not? You know,
I just
I
can't
was
imagine
asked.
that being able to do that. I mean, I don't know. I can't even imagine the free time that you were granted too. I mean, being granted it in this, the way the Sea Org is now, I can't imagine that even being possible, but times are
Well,
different, I
nobody
suppose.
ratted me out, number one,
Mm.
which was
No
amazing.
KRs. That's amazing.
No
Yeah.
KRs, which the supervisor should have ratted me out, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know why. I never even dated him. Maybe he wanted me to. I don't know. He didn't. And
Yeah.
I don't think my immediate boss knew that I was skipping so much.
Yeah.
And then but it was my stats. My stats were really high,
Yeah.
so
I
they
guess as long
liked
as it
me.
got done. Yeah.
I don't think I served beans and rice one time when I worked there.
And that was a punishment meal, right?
Yeah,
Sort of a
but I don't remember ever doing it. Now we shared the galley with the Manor Hotel,
uh
and I do remember the cook for the Manor Hotel making beans and rice for the Manor staff.
Gotcha.
So,
Hmm.
but I never did. So apparently we kept our stats up during that time,
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like it.
all of us. Because I do remember when I started, they had been eating split pea soup every day for quite a
I
while.
sort of like that. Yeah, I like that. Not every day, but I like having that occasional.
From what I understand, the guy that was before me, the chief steward before me, that was the current cook, he basically blew off post. They went and retrieved him, and
Mhm.
nobody had bought any food. And so when I came on, that for very first thing I had to do was buy food. Of course, my
Sure.
immediate senior helped me, and it wasn't that hard. And yeah, I started feeding them. Everybody was really happy with me because I fed them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
You don't
bought
shit where
enough.
you eat, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, I just, and they, I think it helped that I was kind of a cute little teenager too. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I've
and
seen pictures.
female. Yeah. So I think that did help. Thank you. Um,
So
so
we'll move on.
anyway,
We'll move out of the kitchen.
let's move on out of the kitchen. Let's talk
Yeah.
about Christmas because that's a defining moment.
Okay.
My mom had never actually, she had only sent packages to Vietnam when my brother was there.
Mhm.
And she wasn't very good at sending packages and getting them to the place on time. So I didn't
Right.
get any Christmas presents until New Year's and after New Year's, and I was alone on Christmas. And
Hmm.
everybody in the Sea Org just most of them went places. They had friends and family to hang out
They
with,
got
and
libs?
yeah, and there was just a handful of us. So I made my cook was gone, and I had to cover. So I made like the equivalent of a Thanksgiving dinner type thing. I
Yeah.
had a Better Homes and Garden cookbook, and I just followed the directions. Everybody was happy. Most of the people took their food to their either to their office or to their room. Well, it's
Mhm.
not like we had a table and hung out together.
Yeah.
And so once I got all the work done, which I got done pretty quick because there wasn't much to do, I had to do the dishes too. But honestly, I mean, we had dishwashing machines. Anyway, I got pretty lonely, and I was starting to not like the Sea Org.
Naturally.
I remembered kind of daydreaming about living with one person and cooking meals for one person. And I was, thinking about children. And I knew that the Sea Org was no place for children.
That
They, at
policy was
that time, they were still, yeah, having children.
yeah.
In fact,
Okay.
a lot of second generation YouTubers were probably born around the time I was there. So,
Right. The
um,
Sterlings, the,
yeah,
Noras,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, a lot of them. Liz, I don't know the years exactly, but they
Yeah.
probably were. It
Makes
was
sense.
in
Yeah.
that time period.
Yep.
So, I knew that kids were treated terribly.
Yeah.
So, um, my parents came to visit. They offered to pay for my divorce because I was still not divorced. I made a counter offer, and I said, "How about you give me a couple of weeks to tie up everything here, and then send me a Greyhound ticket, and I will come to you, and you let me stay there for a few months, and I'll get
Mhm.
a job and I'll pay you back." Oh my God, my dad was so happy, and and he didn't like me down there. He saw my room, and it looked like a nun's room. He wasn't happy at all.
I can only
And
picture, yeah, what they look like.
yeah, it was pretty bad. And
Yeah.
so they were super happy, and they left all happy. And the only time that anybody in the Sea Org saw them, they were all happy and smiling because, I told them to keep it quiet. They did.
Yeah.
And so nobody knew, of course. And I kept it on the down low, and I made my plans, which, I bought food for the whole galley for a while because I didn't have a replacement, and I knew that they were going to be hurting. And then I had
Hmm.
to get rid of some stuff and pack and get something to pack in. And I don't know. I had whatever I wanted to wrap up, maybe say goodbye to a few people
Hmm.
in weird ways because I couldn't openly say goodbye.
Right.
And so then the day came. It was a Saturday. We planned it, and I left. And I went to the Greyhound station thinking that they had pre-bought the ticket. Well, I get there and they hadn't. And it was like, oh my God. And I had no money. Uh, I think I had enough for like a vending machine. That was about it.
Hmm.
And then, but I did pack a little food, some apples and things. And so I waited at the Greyhound station for hours, the whole time thinking that somebody was going to come from the Sea Org and get me. The saving grace is that Saturday morning was our time to do laundry and stuff. So,
Right. You get some time to
uh,
yourself on Saturday.
yeah, and then also I had fibbed to the cook. I think I traded some time for him. He wanted to do something, so I traded to have him cover because I normally, I don't know. Anyway, I made it so I wouldn't be noticed as quickly.
Hmm.
And they were kind of used to me taking off because I did take off a lot when I was in the Sea Org. I had
Yeah.
a,
Oh, your mic went out there. You had a what?
come on,
Oh,
connect.
there it is. There you are.
Good. All right. Now I
There you
gotta
are. Can you hear me?
turn the, yeah. So
Look at
I
that.
don't see any live.
Technical support. You're
Oh,
good. You're
sorry.
good.
Okay.
No problem.
So
I don't
what
know
was
what
I?
happened.
I don't either. So I was at the Greyhound station, right?
Yes, yes, you were.
Okay. So my uncle was the only one in the family that had enough cash to pay for the bus tickets.
Right.
I don't know why. Things were different back then. Anyway, my parents got the money from him. They had to go to the Greyhound station there and pay for
Hmm.
the ticket. And then finally it happened, and I was able to leave that evening. And so I spent the whole night on the bus getting to my hometown and slept all day when I got there finally. So that
Hmm.
was my blow. I was worried about Sea Org security chasing me, but they
Yeah. Coming
didn't.
to get you. Yeah.
And so I made it home, and I didn't even go to the local church until I knew I still felt like a Scientologist, and I still wanted to be a Scientologist. I was still
Hmm.
brainwashed. So, but I didn't go anywhere until I got a job, and I talked it over with my friend that guy that I used to babysit, and
Right.
he told me that he would loan me the money if I made the payments every month. And of course I couldn't do it until I had a job, but I did get a job pretty quick.
Loan you
And
the money for what? For just living expenses?
oh no, for my Sea
Yeah.
Org debt.
Oh, okay. I wasn't clear on that part. And how much
Which
did
by the
that
way,
come out to?
I think it was like 500, and
Uh,
that was just for that stupid training that I had to
the
do
EPF. Yeah, the
for
EPF.
my position. So I basically paid for my on the job training.
Which is so illegal. I mean,
Yeah, it's
if
crazy.
anywhere to look into it, yeah. Especially now,
And
like I know with my job, they send me to conferences and stuff like that. If they ever, and I get paid on the clock for it. But imagine having to
exactly.
pay for your on the job training. I
Yeah,
don't know. It just seems so ridiculous. But in their
it
warped
is.
mind, that makes complete sense.
It didn't make any sense, if I'd thought about it, but I didn't, that's
Right.
just the way it was. So
Yeah.
he loaned me that, and he also loaned me more so that I could take the Dianetics course, and that's how I became a Dianetics auditor. And I
So
bought my
let me
e-meter.
just try to get clear on this. I mean, you blew from the Sea Org, uh, and you paid your Sea Org debt, and now you're getting back into Scientology, back into doing Dianetics again. I mean, I would have thought you were mentally out of it or mentally done with it. No,
No, because I was still brainwashed and really felt like Scientology was our, you know, solution
see,
to
right.
everything. And I
So what
did
did you
want to
want? Just
become a counselor. I wanted to be a counselor and a minister. So
yeah.
I bought the course, I bought my e-meter, I bought all the books I needed. It
Wow.
ended up being a $3,000 loan. I had to make payments that were like 150 a month. Now, mind you,
No,
back then, if you made 150 a week take home, you were doing really good.
right.
And I also had to pay back my parents and pay rent a little bit. They
I
didn't
don't get
charge me very
why
much.
I don't get why you couldn't have gone this route in the Sea Org. You had to blow to actually, accomplish these goals that you wanted to do. I mean, couldn't you have said to your superior, "Look, I have ambitions of being a minister. I have ambitions of helping the greater good in the Sea Org through this way,
Of
blah blah
course.
blah." I mean,
Of
but
course I did.
why did you take the route of blowing to do this? I mean, did you just
Because
want
they
the
wouldn't.
lighter schedule? You wanted to get out of there? What was it?
No, because they were going to just make me do bullshit weird courses. And that's why I quit going to training.
Yeah,
I mean, it's insane. And that's what they do to people in the Sea Org. They just make you do bullshit, weird training
to keep you
that
busy. Yeah,
to keep you busy. Yeah, unless you go into the tech department, like what's his name did.
Mark Headley.
Yeah, well, yeah, but there's also that other guy, the angry young guy that's a second generation guy. Um,
There's a couple of them angry young guys. What are you, a
that
YouTuber, you're saying?
yeah, um,
No. Sterling?
Surge,
Serge.
Surge.
Oh, okay, yeah, Serge, I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, and he went
Yep.
in specifically to
Angry.
get training. No,
Right,
not to
right,
get angry, to get training, and so.
right.
And that's okay. And originally, I was actually recruited for that, but the stinky egg emergency was my diversion.
Mhm.
Also, it's just- so my track at that point was to join the Guardian's office, the scary Guardian's office,
Right.
because the galley was under it. So they were planning on training me up to be another Claire Headley.
Mhm.
And
That was
if I'd
RTC, right?
Yeah, if I well, I RTC wasn't created then, so it was
Right.
called the Guardian's office. So
Okay.
yeah, I would have went that route, and I wouldn't have been trained and probably just got security checks and shit like
Mm,
that.
yeah,
So yeah, it was not a good situation, and I knew it. My gut was
yeah.
telling me that it was the wrong direction. So I'm in the local organization here in Oregon, and paying off all this money because I owed everybody everything. And it was hard for me to get enough money to do first and last rent, even though the rent back then was like 150 bucks a month. It was
Mhm.
cheap, but I just couldn't. So I had to pay all that shit down, stayed at my parents for a while, paid, by the time I paid him rent, or paid my parents rent, food, and paid for my transportation costs and paid the monthly payment to the guy that loaned me the money.
Right.
And I mean, there was hardly anything left, and then, of course, the church was more, more, more,
Yeah,
give us
yeah,
more, you know.
yeah.
So, I finished the Dianetics course, started doing the counseling, did the minister's course, which was cheap. I did pay for that cash,
Mhm.
and then I started doing Sunday services, and I became like everybody's favorite minister to marry him or um, do the baby welcomings, and I did one funeral. And, I met my second husband, and we ended up living together, got married, had a
Mhm.
baby, and, I didn't like how the Church of Scientology, even as a public, just wanted all our money, all our time. They
Yeah.
didn't want us to spend time with our child. They wanted us to be at the church and somehow magically afford a babysitter and constantly, constant, 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 and we were
Could never give
struggling. It
enough.
was yeah, it was the early mid 80s, and there was a recession in Oregon that was pretty bad. The whole forestry industry just bellied out, and that was like our main industry at the time. It was before the Silicon Forest. In fact, that was in the later 80s. So we were in this pretty bad recession, and we had to concentrate on just taking care of our little family. And so
Mhm.
I my plan was to, sell auditing and help people. And the church fought me on every step. And they didn't come out and call me a suppressive person, but it was kind of like, if you don't come and audit and counsel for the church for free for us, then you're
Well,
just not allowed to, even
yeah,
though I
you
paid for the
but that's
training.
but you were essentially squirreling the tech. I mean, let's be honest, if you were gonna order them
I
yourself, right?
did. I
Yeah.
did. I had to because the prices were too high. They,
I get it, but it's
you know,
against policy. I mean, that wouldn't fly in any org, to be honest.
yeah, and they didn't have any proof because, the people that I helped and stuff, they weren't
Right.
going to tell. And
Yeah.
so
And I
we would
even
just,
you said you
and
got
I
some sort
lied.
of license? You said you got some sort of license to do this, I mean, privately or whatnot. I mean,
Well,
even
I became
offering
a
some sort of
minister.
right.
And
So I
yeah, I
guess
was,
maybe that's a loophole in terms of offering counseling and mental health services to an extent, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
exactly.
sense.
I would
That
just
makes sense.
pretend that I wasn't charging.
Yeah.
I would just say I did counseling services.
Wow.
I didn't admit that I was using the e-meter. And a
Right.
lot of times I didn't use the e-meter because I found it kind of clunky, and
Mhm.
I didn't like using it. I kind of used my gut in place of the meter.
Mhm.
I have you seen any of the YouTube videos that SPTV has where they talk about how the meter's used to guide
Uh,
the pre-clear?
yeah.
Well, there's this way that you read it, and it makes this. That's the needle. It kind of
The floating needle?
bumps. Not the floating one. This is a bump. It kind of goes
Oh.
like that.
Not as hard as a rock slam, right?
No, that's
That's
not.
different? I don't know. Yeah.
See my
So
finger,
the
how
bump.
ragged
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
is.
Sure.
So a little bump like that is what you follow. So you ask a question, and
Mm,
if the meter if the meter does that real quick right after the question, you go,
right.
that. What was that?
Yeah, yeah.
And they'll look at it again in their
Sure.
mind, and it'll do it again. What was that? Tell me that. And
It's just
that's
so
how the
funny.
meter works.
Yeah,
And
and when you know how the meter works electronically, I don't know, it just sort of it's all mumbo jumbo in my mind, you know? I mean,
I know,
you can
I get
squeeze
it.
it for different reactions. It just seems
Yes.
I don't know, it seems
Yes, but
crazy.
we are supposed to keep an eye on that, and an auditor really has to multitask.
Yeah,
Um, so you're writing down a shorthand of what the client says. You're
right,
watching them for body movement. You're supposed to teach them not to do that before the session. And you got to keep one eye on the meter, and you've got to know the questions. So they're usually over here next to the meter where you can look at it if it's complicated. Most of the time, there's simple procedures with only like 3 or 4 questions. So, or Dianetics has like 12 questions. I mean, it's a little more complicated, but
right.
they had introduced book auditing while I was out there. Mitch Briskner. Is that how you
Brisker,
pronounce?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he explains book auditing, and I took to book auditing like a fish to water. I mean, I love
Mhm.
doing it, and I
Can you
was
describe what
really
book
good
auditing
at it.
is? What the difference is?
Huge. It's basically very similar to Dianetics, but it's like a free form Dianetics. You don't have to do the same rote 12 questions. You could, use your own words.
Hmm.
It's the same basic idea, but you can use your own words, and you don't have to charge as much. If you're doing book auditing, I used to charge $10 an hour. So
Jeez. Jesus.
yeah, and Another thing about formal auditing is it was sold in 12.5-hour blocks, and you had to have all that money up front. And
Right, right. I know
so
that.
I think it was like $500 for 12.5 hours.
Hmm.
So I mean, my pre-clears, you know, $500 versus, what is that? 12,
Sure.
I mean, it's just not very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. No,
And
it's like it was
and
probably
yet
five times more in the church.
and yet they were getting it from somebody who had the Dianetic training and really knew what they were doing and was
Hmm.
very good at it. So
Yeah.
they were getting a lot more than regular book auditing by somebody who hadn't went through the Dianetics course. It was just this
Hmm.
little loophole that they had for a little while. And of
Yeah.
course, I took advantage of it. But like I said, they still were hassling me all the time and
Right.
wanting me to do more, more, more. And,
I mean,
you know,
every
like,
dollar you're getting in your pocket from this auditing is a dollar that's not going to the church. Let's be honest. I mean, they're going to shut
exactly.
that down as soon as they can. You know,
Yes, they really
squirrel
wanted
over
me to
here.
join, and they were
Hmm.
pretty rentless. Right? What's that word? What they were
Relentless.
relentless trying to get me to join the church one
Sure.
way or another, be
Hmm.
free labor. And same with my then husband. They just wanted us to be their slaves because that's what Scientology is into, is slavery.
Yeah.
So that's happening. Trying to raise my kid, dealing with a recession, trying to help other people get jobs. So I was
Hmm.
using my counseling to help them get jobs. And so inadvertently, I ended up like helping them with interview skills and, just all sorts of stuff like that.
Did you end
And I
up?
really,
This is not through the church. This was through your own private
my
thing, still,
private
right?
practice.
Yeah,
Yes.
your private practice. I mean,
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is. But yeah, it just sounds funny, as a
Yeah.
minister to have your own private practice,
So,
your private congregation, I guess we could call it.
yeah, I had, I don't know, about 25 people that were pretty steady,
Yeah,
and it drove the church crazy.
I
So
bet.
that was happening. And they were pretty relentless wanting my ex-husband also to join because he had like golden era studio skills. So they were really trying hard to get him to go there.
Hmm.
And so we ended up moving to Los Angeles for a while because my ex-husband wanted to go down there and become, work for Hollywood. And we connected up with the field Scientology out there, and the plan is that I'd work WOG jobs while he connected up and got into Hollywood. And
Hmm.
um, the Hollywood writers were on strike, and everything was shut down.
It seems to happen periodically.
Yeah, and so his career just wasn't going anywhere. And it
Hmm.
was expensive to live down there, so we ended up both working WOG jobs, and we weren't very happy. My dad had died by then. My mom was lonely, and so we spent a couple of years down there.
Hmm.
And um, my mom contacted me. She wanted to get a smaller place to live, and so she was going to move into an apartment. And she said, "If you come back up here, I'll give you the house," that she owned outright. And we really wanted to own a house by then, and we weren't going to be able to in Los Angeles. We'd been looking at property and houses down there, and it was super expensive. I mean, we couldn't turn that down. So we packed up a U-Haul and we went back to Oregon and moved into my family home. And we met up with like all the people that I used to counsel and stuff.
Hmm.
And some of them had already left. And I technically left in Los Angeles, but I didn't tell anybody and that's real common. Um,
To be under the radar like that, you mean?
yes. What
Yeah.
happened in Los Angeles right before we left was all of us field auditors were called in for a mandatory meeting. And I think this is kind of about the time that David Miscavige was taking over. because this is very David Miscavige like. And we were all in this big room, and they locked the doors, and they put chains on the doors, and then Sea Org members stood in front of the doors, and they wanted us to all sign this paper saying that any money that we made using this is when the Religious Technology Center started. So I'm sure it came from David Miscavige. So they were saying that any money that we made, no matter what, using any Scientology tech, we had to give them 10% before taxes.
Wow.
And we all had to sign this paper saying that we would do it. And they said it was a contract legally binding, and we revolted. And a bunch of the men threatened to beat up the Sea Org members, and they broke down the door so we could get out. And so we didn't, for some reason, they told us we couldn't stand on the sidewalk. So we literally were all standing on that street, L. Ron Hubbard Way. And
Right.
and we were talking about our next steps. And basically, all of the field auditors in Los Angeles decided to leave the Church of Scientology all at once. And I was in that group. So I still was in Los Angeles for a little bit. And now a similar thing happened to my ex-husband in the art community, but it was much smaller. So he was thinking about leaving the church, but we were afraid to talk to each other. And I had a friend that was telling me, whispering things in my ear about what was going on with the RTC. And she told me about the gold base that was being formed. And she said there's a secret
And that was
place.
really hush hush. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, and she said there's a secret place, and they have these big fences, and it's guarded with guards and guard dogs, and there's even rumors that they have guns, and they'll shoot people if they try to go in. And I kid you not. And she goes, do you want to go see it? And I'm like, yeah. So a bunch of us got in the car, and we all went there, and we timed it to go to another place where David Mayo was, who also left the church, and everybody knew who David Mayo was. And
I don't. I mean, can you explain too for our viewers who don't know
he was
David
the
Mayo?
head tech guy. And so anybody who did counseling and auditing knew who David Mayo was. He was super respected. And if you had asked me back then if LRH dropped his body, who would take over? Of course, we didn't know that LRH was sick, but that was another rumor that she was whispering. And
who did she know?
Yeah.
Or who was she connected to?
She was actually connected to David Mayo.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time. And David Mayo had a lot of the inside information, and he left the church. So he was going to form another organization and do the tech. It didn't go very far, but we went and we drove by, and we saw the guards and all that. Who knows? Maybe Jackson was there. I don't know. And then we went to the David Mayo meeting, and oh my God, he looked sickly in the films when I had seen him, and I thought he was probably had cancer or something, because he lost a lot of weight and he had that kind of gray pallor. But when we went to see him, he was like all healthy and rested. Turns out, he actually got some sleep and was eating some decent food. They even gave us like decent food there. Yeah, it was like a party. It was awesome. There was another guy, I can't remember his name. If I tried really hard, I could remember it, but there were two guys.
What was the reasoning for this meeting that you went to? And at the same time, you went to Gold Base, and then you went to this meeting with David Mayo. What was the reasoning that this David Mayo guy had a meeting?
It was basically the changes that were in Scientology that were caused by David Mayo. I mean, not David Miscavige.
Okay. And this was Mayo's meeting to address them, or it was a Scientology meeting? Okay.
It was like, come with me, fellow Scientologists. Come with me.
Yeah.
And so
that's prime target for OSA to be sitting in on Trying to
but it
figure out
was
what's going
before
on.
OSA. OSA was probably
Guardians, I
just
suppose.
mean, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a
Guardians
twinkle in
office would have their
David.
hand in that.
Yeah, it was a twinkle in um,
Gavage's
David's
eye.
eye. Yeah,
Yep.
what's his name? The guy who made himself king of Scientology.
Right, right, right.
But see,
We're not worthy.
so then I think during this time I met a little bit before this, before the big meeting where we all broke the door down.
Mhm,
I was working as receptionist at Big Blue, and
mhm.
for money. They were paying me minimum wage. And I met Suzette Hubbard, not Suzette.
Mary
Yeah,
Sue?
Suzette Hubbard.
Okay.
No, Mary Sue hidden away.
That's just
I
different.
don't even know.
Gotcha.
Might be dead by then.
I think
Um,
so.
I got her confused with Suzette because my ex-husband had a thing with Suzette Hubbard
Hmm.
that happened, and I it was art related, so I didn't know about
Mhm.
that shit. I had I met her sister, and her sister was like all agitated and upset. And I think this was right around the time LRH died, or right before he died. So he was like really sick. So she's all
Yeah,
agitated, couldn't tell me what was going on.
right.
I think she was pregnant too, or something.
Jeez.
And so she stayed in my reception for hours waiting for something. I
Mhm,
think that it's possible that maybe it was when she was kind of paid off to leave.
mhm.
I'm not positive, but something like that. And she was super
Right.
agitated, and there were weird things happening, but they were all, I didn't know about them. And I was let go from that position shortly after
Mm.
that too, because of all the changes that were happening. So
Right,
it's
right.
pretty much when David seized power.
Yeah.
And she just kind of disappeared, like she was bought off or something. And
Okay.
I don't know the details, but I remember that I got such a bad feeling in my stomach about it. Then we
Sure.
had that the door locking incident, and then just before um, then my I found out that my ex-husband and I both wanted to leave at the same time, which was huge
Okay.
relief because a lot of couples broke up when one wanted to leave and the other one didn't.
Right.
So when we found out that we were both on the same page for different reasons, but the same page, there was a lot of relief. So then we went on the down low, and I bought the OT levels in the field, and I think I paid $500 for all of them.
Right. So what does that mean? You bought the OT levels in the field. That's interesting.
The OT levels were super expensive, and you had to have permission to do, I think,
Through
OT3, I
Scientology.
thought.
Through
Yeah,
Scientology. Yeah. Yeah.
and and everything about it was all hush hush. You couldn't talk about it,
Mhm.
blah blah blah.
No, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
out in
yeah.
the
You get
field, things were a
cancer,
little
yada, yada.
different, and we had actual copies of them. Probably that guy in England,
Wow.
that got them. I don't know. Anyway, the guy that sold them to me ran me through them, and when I read OT3, well, first I just said, "What?"
For those that don't know, OT3 is the introduction of the Xenu story, made famous
When
by
I
South
read it,
Park.
I could. First of all, it's handwritten by
Right.
LRH, and it's got scratches in it,
Yeah,
and
I've seen it.
weird. Yeah, it's really a
It
bad,
really is.
unprofessional looking thing,
Yeah,
and
and I
I
don't know why
couldn't
they
believe
kept it
it.
that way. Yeah, yeah.
I have no clue what the thinking was, but it was so
You read it,
bad
shit
and
scratched
so,
out. Yeah, looks like chicken
what do you call
scratch.
that? Like first draft? I mean, it was
Yeah,
so
first
bad.
draft. Yeah, yeah.
And I read it, and I looked at the guy and I'm like, "You're kidding. You're lying to me. This can't be OT3."
Right.
And he said, "No, I took it in the church. That's OT3." And he just looked at me, and I'm like, "Well, this is just stupid Dianetics about demons." Because
Yeah,
in the book of Dianetics, it talks about demons.
yeah.
And that's, I was taught how to audit out demons, which
Well,
is
the whole
basic.
bridge, the whole bridge could be compared to like an exorcism type, right? I mean, exorcising
Yeah.
BTs from your
Well,
body in a sense.
the OT, okay, not the OT, the levels. There's levels. God, is it 0 through 4 or 4? I never did the levels because I attested to natural clear, which is a whole
Mm,
nother bizarre thing.
Past life clear, or what is it? What's natural clear?
At the time, if you just really had your shit together and you weren't like on drugs or
Probably
keyed
idiot.
in,
Yeah.
you could just attest to natural clear. And if you got a
Uh,
floating needle on it, they would let you do it. You could get a clear
Save some
bracelet
money
and
and
the whole
time.
9 yards. And
Sure.
so I had never really done drugs, and
Mm,
because I was so young when I got in, and you know, I didn't consider anything in my life to be overts or wrong.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was promiscuous, but in my world, that was like fun. So
Yeah.
I didn't. It was, what can I say? It was the time period, and
Yeah.
and so yeah, I really had never done anything, and so it was easy to attest to natural clear.
Okay.
So, I did the OT levels, laughed at them, read the whole thing, couldn't believe it. I was pissed. They weren't even worth the $500 that I spent,
No.
but it was good to
No.
know finally. And then I realized, that that part of Scientology was a total flim flam. Totally.
Bogus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Because I mean,
still
you're promised superpowers and moving outside of your body and things like that. I mean, obviously, did you think that maybe I'm getting them delivered to me wrong, or I'm doing something wrong? Why is this not happening? Or were you just really hip to the racket that look, this doesn't happen for anyone, no
Well, I
matter how they're
believed
delivered.
the person that sold them to me came on high recommendations from several people. And then
So,
he swore up and down he was giving me the exact information.
right,
Then
right,
I checked again with people, and sure as shit, we're laughing
yeah,
about it in the field
yeah,
because it was
yeah,
such crap.
yeah. I
And
get it.
so yeah, it was total flim flam. And the thing that astounded me is, I mean, it became really obvious that people who did it in the church, even if they realized it was a flim flam, they were so involved that
Yeah,
they couldn't do anything.
there's
And of
definitely
course, the
there's
whole
definitely a
secrecy.
bunch of reasons for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I was angry. I was really angry. And so was my ex-husband when I told him. I mean, I showed it to him. I mean, this is before the whole South Park thing, and we were just passing it around in the field and
Yeah.
pointing at it and laughing. I mean, it was by the time, but unfortunately the guy that sold them to me, but it was still, I'd pay that 500 again. Just he was a nice enough guy and he needed it, so what the hell. But
That's just so funny that a guy's just going around, hey, you need levels? Need them OT levels?
well, I was on recommendation.
Yeah, I
So
know, but just for someone who had, I mean, it must have been hard for him to smuggle them out of the church. I mean, the way that they deliver them now too is they're locked.
if
They're
if you had
locked
been
with a
it
bracelet,
was
and
yeah, it was like that when I was
yeah,
there too.
yeah,
But if you had been in that room when they were the way they talked to us,
mhm,
and you it changed everything. It changed everything. And what is it, Mark Fisher and
Janice.
Mark and Claire, they talk about
Oh, Mark
when
Headley.
they basically did the same thing to all the missions. I mean, David um, Miscavige destroyed Scientology systematically by ruining all the ways that feeder that sent people in, feeder people. And
Hmm.
it's like he planned it. And then he started like um, cannibalizing the current Scientologists, the big whales that were in there, and
Hmm.
and then he siphoned all the money up to himself. He's just
Yeah,
I cannot even fathom a creepier person
or
than
a
him,
greedier person. I mean, let's be
or a
honest.
greedier person. I mean,
Yeah.
LRH was a joke, but I do think at least toward the end he kind of believed in his crap. But
Mhm.
and maybe in the early times, DM might have, but
I personally don't think he believes it one bit anymore. Or if
oh
he
no,
maybe he
no,
did, I don't think he does now, I'll tell you that.
he's an awful, awful person, and he
Right.
deserves the whole. But I will settle for jail if we can get him there.
So we're at 50 minutes here, or 52. Let's let's sort of start wrapping this up, and let's do a part 3. But let's discuss right now, what do we want to hit in part 3? What do we have left to cover?
I think we've covered most of it. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
think about it if you want to wait
sure.
in a week, and then we can talk about some
Yeah, yeah.
questions.
I mean, I'm sure there's some
Yeah.
things, there's questions I'm gonna have rewatching the video and things like that, things we didn't hit.
There is
I was most
life
interested.
life after Scientology too,
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah, exactly.
so we could talk
Trying to
about
pick
that.
up from where you get out of there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd be happy to.
I wasn't aware of the whole part where you were selling auditing, on the side. I didn't know people really did that. And
Yeah, some of us.
how Sea Org had been aware of it at a point. I would have thought that would have got nipped in the bud immediately. I didn't know that they were actually. Um,
Well,
you said they were
we were
fighting you on it. I would have thought they would have shut that down immediately, but you said they
well,
did give you a fight for it.
we were sold a bill of sales on that this could be a career. That's why I
Yeah,
became a
yeah,
Dianetic auditor, so that I could make a career. I decided it was a conscious decision. Instead of going into psychology or psychiatry, I went
right,
into Scientology and I paid for it so that I could help people. I wanted to be
sure.
one of the frontline people to help get rid of crime, war, and insanity.
And
And
you
that's
enjoyed doing
how
it?
I was going to. Oh, I loved it. I
Yeah,
like helping people. I ended up
me
helping
too.
people anyway. And we can talk about that later.
Okay. Well, we'll cut it off here. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
again.
you.
It was a
Yeah.
pleasure. We'll play the little exit video, and if you want to just stick around, we'll talk. I got 5 minutes to talk to you after this. All right. Have a good day,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you.